Senio Calamete.
I hate you!
Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months.
Yo, what up, brothers? It's the director. I'll tell you one thing, man. Yesterday, I was mad. Today, I'm just more disappointed. Last night's game, absolutely such a huge one that we needed to win. If you take a look in contrast, the Chargers now tied with the Denver Broncos, the Vegas Raiders, and the bottom of that division's kind of wide open. And after such a good season that the Chargers have been having, I was really hoping that it would not come to this. Because with the win yesterday, the Chargers would be tied technically in the lead of the AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs, and honestly have a good shot at taking the division. At this point now, though, unless things kind of start shaking out a little bit different as the season's starting to come to a close, I don't know if my confidence in the Chargers taking the AFC West is as present as it was before this game. This was a pretty huge one. And certainly the Chargers could still overcome, and things could fall into place where maybe we do take the West. But at this point, with what I saw last night, the kind of adjustments and the kind of things the Chargers need to learn from this game and the kind of growing they need to take from this game, I don't know if we're quite there yet. Now, let me be clear. This team, to me, is still a playoff caliber team. They are. But what happens once we get into the playoffs is a different story. And we got a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff I think we can unpack from this game, try to learn from this game, and honestly figure out what the heck happened. Because I was there, man. I was there in L.A. watching them stomp on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, of course, did get stomped again by the Cincinnati Bengals. But still, this is a much better team than what I saw on Sunday. So what happened? What happened? We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of it, man. So before we do get going, question for everybody in the comments. What is one thing the Chargers could have done better in this game to grab the win versus the Broncos? Maybe better, play from Herbert, better protection, better defense. Let me know in the comments section below. As always, guys, we do have a reminder for y'all. The season of giving, the season of being thankful. We are giving away a signed Justin Herbert jersey to one of my lucky subscribers. All you got to do to enter for this one is hit up the link in the description. Follow the instructions there. Very simple. Good luck to everybody. And then finally, of course, to the crew members, we got a signed Keenan Allen full-sized helmet. This thing is awesome. Huge thank you to all my crew members out there, man. You guys really do help keep the lights on around here. All you got to do to be entered for this one is be a member of my crew. That's it. We're drawing a name close to Christmas. And with that, let's get into this painful recap. Before we do, hit us up with the like and sub. If you do enjoy this content, small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Please, let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers at Broncos, Week 12 post-game report. Ugh, man, let's just all sit down and take our headache. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw yesterday, starting with the stat check. Justin Herbert. I mean, you look at these stats minus, maybe one of the interceptions. He had a pretty awesome day, right? 303 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sort of. We have more to talk about in Justin Herbert. Certainly has stuff to work on, and certainly he's still a great quarterback, but at the same time, we'll unpack that in just a minute. Teddy Bridgewater / Drew Lock, mediocre numbers. It's tough. I'm actually going to skip down here to the receiving numbers because just to kind of give you guys a contrast of what's going on. Williams, 57 yards. One of them was that big breakoff touchdown, or big breakoff play. 26 for Patrick, 25 for Judy. The Chargers did do some good things, I would say, defensively. Maybe it was more, the lack of doing good things by Teddy Bridgewater. Either way, this offense was right? You would look at the score and see the stats and be absolutely confused, like, what the heck happened? How did this translate into 13-28? Again, we'll unpack more there in just a second. Chargers rushing. This is, again, something I want to cover a little bit later. Justin Herbert, for the second week in a row, leads the team in rushing yards, although it be at only 36 this week. Still, Chargers got to do something here. And again, this is something I want to highlight. I think it's very important. The Denver rushing. Chargers defense did okay. It's not the best week, certainly not the worst week, but 83 yards to Melvin, 54 to Javonte Williams. It is what it is, right? The Chargers allowing around 147 per game. And I don't know if we're seeing signs of that improving anytime soon. And then the defense, again, we'll cover here in just a minute. But Fuller was all over the place. Simmons, the Denver defense is really, really good. And this is something that we talked a lot about in the game preview. This is why I was saying, hey, this might be a trap game. Being the bottom of the division, the Broncos, they don't have the great quarterback, but they're still a really, really, really good defense. And I think the Chargers certainly did fall subject to that this week. Outside of that Chargers defense, Kaiser White, Derwin James, and Sir Adderley, Justin Jones, they had a pretty decent week too. And then Joey Bosa too. I was seeing a lot of pressure. And again, we'll talk about that in just a second. So let's get into it, man. Let's do it. Let's uncap some of the stuff that we saw in this game. Maybe we'll find some answers. Maybe we'll find some closure. Maybe we'll find some reason to be excited about the Bengals game, which certainly is going to be a lot more tough than this one with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert going head-to-head. But let's get into it, man. First thing I do want to talk about is the master and apprentice. Certainly, Vic Fangio came out of this one saying, you know what? It's not time for you to overtake the Fangio offense or the Fangio defense title or whatever. The king of the Fangio defense, still Vic Fangio's defense. And what is going on with Brandon Staley is a big thing I do want to cover in this one. I've heard this going around the Chargers fan base. I read a couple articles on it today too. His personnel choices are not great. And the biggest one that I remember starting off the game, the chat was telling me that Hymas wasn't going to be starting in relief of Matt Filer. It was going to, in fact, be Kelmente. And I just... Either way, man, I didn't understand it. I was like, okay, maybe Kelmente is more prepared for this game. Maybe Hymas needs time to continue to develop. I don't know. All I know is that what I saw in the preseason and in camp, Hymas has looked absolutely fantastic. I've been wondering why they haven't put him in yet and put Filer at right tackle, just trying to help this Chargers offensive line recover from the injuries. And certainly that decision did carry some consequence in this game, which we'll highlight in just a moment. Tillery needs more bench time as well. I just feel like with what we saw last week and how the Chargers were able to shut down the Najee Harris running attack, why would you go back, right? Why would you go back to Jerry Tillery? I know he's a first-round pick. He carries, that with him the rest of his career. But at the same time, if he's struggling versus the run and we're going up against a team that honestly at one point was losing their starting quarterback, was pretty much forced to run it all over the place, why would we continue to put Jerry Tillery out there is kind of beyond me. And then finally, again, we knew that they were going to run. We knew that they were going to run several times in this game. Why did we not adjust? I saw the Chargers, a couple of times load the box, but not enough in my opinion. I think honestly it came down to the personnel up front. Why did the Chargers, Gaziano not be out there? Forrest Merrill, Brendan Fayoko. I just feel like they had much more success versus Pittsburgh. It's very confusing to see them out in this game versus Denver. So that's my biggest thing. Staley, first-year head coach. He's going to have some, growing pains and stuff. The same thing with his, coordinators and stuff like that. But this is one where I was like, I feel like we saw some success last week. We should learn from that and let it grow from there, not, revert back to what we were hoping would work before. Next up, Justin Herbert. He had a bad day, and I think it's okay to point this out. He had a bad day. He also put up 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, so, he's still great. This is still Justin Herbert we're talking about. Offensive Rookie of the Year last season. Potentially, an MVP candidate in seasons to come. We are so lucky to have Justin Herbert. Every once in a while he'll have a bad day. And today, or I should say Sunday, he did have a bad day. Threw a lot of passes that could have been intercepted. We saw one dropped by Justin Simmons. A couple in the area of, defenders that maybe should have come down with one. That was not good. So, honestly, we're kind of lucky that the Chargers only, suffered 2 interceptions on Sunday versus maybe like 3 or 4. Because there were quite a few where I was like, I'm not quite sure about that one, man. A lot of passes to receivers in double coverage, too. Not to mention some of the bad placement and staring down receivers. There was one play that does point out to me a little bit. It might have been a 4th down. I don't know. It looked like an RPO. And you had Keenan Allen coming out in a slant. And right there was Patrick Surtain and I think Justin Simmons. 2 of the better defensive backs in the league. And it feels like Justin Herbert stared him down and threw it anyway, hoping that, Keenan Allen would come down with it. I think I may have seen somebody pull down Keenan Allen's arm, but that's either way not probably the best decision for Justin Herbert in that situation. And then you look over to the right, and Austin Eckler is wide open, behind him or in the flat. I felt like, maybe the pressure was getting in there pretty bad. We'll talk about that, just in a second. But there could have been better decision-making by Justin Herbert that day. Bad placement, staring down receivers, lots of passes that could have been intercepted. Not his best day. But like I said before, we are lucky to have Justin Herbert. It's okay for him to have a bad day. Unfortunately, it was versus the Denver Broncos defense. That may have had something to do with it. McFangio, again, the mastermind at disguising coverages. Any quarterback's going to struggle against that, but Justin Herbert especially found himself having a tough one in this game today. Next up, bad luck and bad vibes. We'll take a look at this photo right here. I don't think this was the play. I think the play that I'm referring to was the Joey Bosa strip sack that went forward for a first down. Maybe this one is it. I think this one. No, this is it, because the other one, the other strip sack, they called it an incompletion instead. So Joey Bosa certainly had a great day, but also some bad luck as well. That fumble forward for the first down, I don't know what it was, man. I just kind of knew at that point. I was like, this is going to be one of those games. Because it feels like every single season that we play the Denver Broncos in Mile High, some wacky stuff's going to go down, man. I've been watching this team for 15 years, and I can tell you, the Broncos, for whatever reason, are kind of a thorn in our side. Stuff like this happens a lot. And at that moment, I knew that was such a huge play. That would have taken them off the field. The Chargers get back on offense. I think this was kind of the turning moment of the game for me, where that fumble goes forward for a first down. Very, very unfortunate, thing for the Chargers for that to happen. They had the momentum, and it kind of got killed. And I think there was an injury, and things kind of slowed down, and the Broncos came back. That may have been the drive that they scored on, too. Bad calls, including a bad, pass interference on Mike Williams. He put his hands up to catch the ball, and apparently a ref saw that he was pushing off, which none of us saw on the replay. I call it as I see it. The Chargers did, commit some penalties in this game that you can't defend, but that one was certainly like, what are we doing, man? We've seen a lot worse go uncalled, and that certainly wasn't something I think should have been called at all. Again, a turning point for the game. That would have been a big first down. Chargers likely scoring that one. Bad call pinning the Chargers inside the one. You guys remember that? I think their first punt, the Denver Broncos, the defender was able to snag it and lock in the Chargers inside the 5 at the 1 yard line. But upon replay and watching it in real time, too, the defender stepped into the end zone, which says that means it should have been a touchback. Again, just some bad calls, some bad luck. And, that's kind of part of football, right? Every team's going to experience that. The team had to overcome it, but it just felt like it was very, very tilted in this one. And unfortunately for the Chargers and Justin Herbert, the Denver defense was just too good to overcome that. Still, in the future, good teams are able to overcome stuff like that, and hopefully the Chargers learn from this and are able to move forward. Next up, highlight of the video. Can I zoom in? Can I zoom in on this man right here, number 68? Can we zoom in? Senyo Kelemete. I have never seen a guard in my entire time watching football. I've never seen a guard single-handedly kill a drive over and over and over again. He's had some good games. He's had some good snaps, but holy crap in this game, man. Kelemete, definitely huge contributing factor to why the Chargers dropped this one. Allowed multiple pressures. Pretty much every snap, I saw somebody making their way through on Kelemete's side. Multiple penalties, you guys remember on that play that they scored, the Broncos scored, or that the Chargers, got fizzled out on offense. Multiple penalties. Holy crap. And allowed the sack that pushed the Chargers out of field goal position to finally cap off that drive. The Chargers were in good, position to make an easy field goal. Instead, that sack pushed us back 10, 12 yards, and it turned into a more difficult kick, which Dustin Hopkins was not able to make. That whole drive was just a nightmare. And I know Kelemete probably knows this and he feels bad, but it's something that cannot happen. And this, again, was well after the fact that I stated to the chat, like, why isn't Brendan Hymas in? Like, what happened in practice? What happened behind the scenes to put Kelemete in right now? I don't know. And honestly, the consequences of that were, like, turned up to max and ripped the knob off. It was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible play. Hopefully he improves. Hopefully the Chargers start Brendan Hymas next week if Filer isn't able to come back. I'm still of the opinion Hymas should be in no matter what. But Matt Filer in at right tackle. But either way, the Chargers' protection in this game was just flat out bad. Flat out bad. Also flat out bad, the coverage by Tevin Campbell. I've seen him do some good things. He's been a big hitter. He had a big game like 4 or 5 weeks ago. He's been awesome in some instances. But lately, he's been really, really awful in coverage. Just awful. And I think we saw signs of this versus Minnesota. And those warning signs were just not taken seriously enough. I don't know why the Chargers haven't done anything to address their lack of depth at the cornerback position. We got to solve this, man. It's a must-solve depth issue at this point. If the Chargers have any shot at making it to the playoffs or making it anywhere near far in the playoffs, they have got to solve this now. Because Tevin Campbell, I understand maybe he's got to get some snaps in there once in a while, especially versus running plays. I can understand that. He's a heavy hitter. He's good in that in that department. But in coverage, he's been just such a liability. We've seen him getting targeted all game long, versus Tim Patrick. Even when he wasn't covering Tim Patrick, they were still targeting Campbell because they knew whoever Campbell was covering was likely open. Chargers have to figure out the issue at cornerback very, very quick. The tight ends go silent. Sort of. We're seeing this awesome photo, kind of a Hail Mary pass by Justin Herbert, and then we see our guy Jared Cook go up there and snag it, touchdown Chargers. That was awesome. What I'm meaning by the tight ends go silent is that there was very much so a lack of involvement by the tight ends in this game. And the Chargers have shown that the tight ends are very dangerous, particularly a man by the name of Donald Parham. I think Parham got away in this game with 1 catch and 5 yards. Why? I saw Parham as kind of a secret weapon in this game, right? Parham, he's a mismatch for every single defender that the Broncos got. And the Broncos got themselves some seriously, seriously good defenders. But why not get Parham more involved when you have an obvious mismatch no matter where he is? I don't know. The underutilization of tight ends all around worries me, especially versus this defense where I think we kind of needed them. They've got great corners. Their linebackers are okay, but that's where I think you attack them with the tight ends. We just didn't see that very much today. And maybe that does fall on Joe Lombardi a little bit. I don't know. It felt like they could have made a difference, and we decided not to use them. Next up, you guys see Joshua Kelly here. Joshua Kelly had an okay game. He had a couple decent plays. But I'm pointing this out because a lack of a run game is really hurting this team, and I think we are all starting to come around to that. And it's hard to say that because on the flip side, we've got Austin Eckler. And he's great. He is. He's one of the biggest reasons the Chargers have been scoring so many points over the past few weeks, right? But what this team needs is a ground and pounder. Somebody that, Austin Eckler can be great at times, especially if he's got the kind of room to run. He's awesome. He's as good as the best of them. But we don't have that guy where it's like, hey, we need you to go out there and with pure size and pure muscle and pure, will, move the chains, in a third and short, in a third and goal. We need that kind of guy that can fall forward and generate 2 extra yards. We just don't have that on this team. I'm actually really missing Kellen Ballage, who ended up going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was like 6'3". Chargers used him very appropriately. It didn't take away from Austin Eckler very much because they're 2 very different kind of running backs. We've got to figure this out because Herbert's led the team in rushing 2 weeks in a row now, and that can't be the case. You can't have your quarterback leading in rushing unless their name is Lamar Jackson. I don't think that Joshua Kelly and company, even Justin Jackson, as good as he can be, he's just too injured. I don't think we have an answer on the roster right now for someone that can take on that role. Because in the end, I think it's Austin Eckler that needs help. Austin Eckler needs somebody that can come in, handle those responsibilities, so Eckler can focus on what he does best: receiving the football, open space, runs, zone running, stuff like that. When we need a ground and pounder, I just don't see one on the roster, and that does worry me. A fizzled offense. Now, the Chargers last week put up 41. That's amazing. That's amazing, right? And the Chargers this week put up almost 400 yards. That's amazing. But to come away with only 13 points is a bad sign. The Chargers have been fizzling in and around the red zone pretty bad lately. And they suffer tremendously when drives do fizzle out. It feels like it's really hard for them to come back. I agree with a lot of the 4th down decisions I've seen in the past couple of weeks, most of the time. But they can be a game killer sometimes. It feels like this team just needs that extra boost. And I don't know. I feel like the 4th down decisions, I'm okay with them. But at the same time, when a drive fizzles out, if you have a chance at 3, maybe take that momentum. Maybe I'm starting to learn, and we're starting to learn as Chargers fans, that this team needs momentum. Justin Herbert needs momentum. The defense needs momentum. So the Chargers got to figure out this offense, man. At times, they look like one of the best in the league. Other times, it looks like they can't, 400 yards, 13 points. That's unacceptable. A couple of good things I'll pull away from this game. Pressure's finally starting to get there. I noticed it all game, even though we didn't get a lot of sacks, whatever. I feel like Bosa and company were finally looking in form. They were generating pressure, and that's something I really, really wanted to see this game. Teddy Bridgewater was throwing it out of bounds a lot, into the dirt a lot. That's what you wanted to see. Joey Bosa was out there doing his job. We looked last week good versus Pittsburgh as well, and that week we definitely got home. But where was Gaziano, right? Where was the other guys that kind of, led to that recipe of success last week? I don't know. But still, it's good to see the Chargers moving Joey Bosa around, getting him in, positions to succeed, and he's starting to really live up to that contract. So that's good. I do like that. We have to praise Austin Eckler, too, man. This guy's a god. Austin Eckler, oh my God, continues to shine despite the loss this week. I don't feel like he was even fully utilized this game. I feel like there's a lot of opportunities where you're like, okay, we have a situation in front of us, like 2nd and 10, 2nd and 15. Get Austin Eckler out there more, right? Use him in those angles, those screens. I don't know why we don't run screens with Austin Eckler. It drives me absolutely insane. But despite that, Eckler's been putting up crazy numbers all season. He's been fantastic. Chargers fans are lucky to have him on the roster. I know we do need a ground and pound or two, but my God, Austin Eckler is a weapon. And we are one of my favorite players on the roster right now. If we're praising players too, Derwin James, holy cow. Why don't we use more safety blitzes, right? Why don't we blitz Derwin James more? Because that was a huge play off the blind side of Teddy Bridgewater. He got there so fast, man. This was the play I was talking about before where we thought it was a fumble. It turns out the ref saw his arm moving forward, which I felt like his arm was moving forward because of the momentum generated by Derwin James, not by Teddy Bridgewater, but whatever, right? Whatever. Great play by Derwin James. The interception by Derwin James gave the Chargers another shot, which fell short, but another shot and maybe coming back in this one. He was all over the field. Again, Chargers fans, very lucky we got Derwin James on this roster. And then finally, we talked about him before, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is a second-year quarterback that had a bad game. But you know what? So long as he's on this roster, we have a chance. He's allowed to have a bad game every once in a while. Because you know what? We are lucky to have him. We are lucky to have him. He made some big plays. It's going to get buried by the loss and the stat sheet, but he had some good plays. Scrambling, too. He's starting to really utilize his mobility, whether it's buying time in the pocket or taking off for yards, safe yards, I might add. He's been a very good decision maker in sliding and stuff like that, too. I can't believe they called that challenge, by the way. With Justin Herbert sliding, they tried to get that fumble. Nah, man, that wasn't going to happen. We're lucky to have Justin Herbert, man. And I saw a lot of good stuff on Sundays despite the loss. So finally, the bottom line here, man. This is a pretty big game that the Chargers dropped on Sunday. I feel like our percentage chance of making it to the playoffs took a hit. Our percentage chance of taking the AFC West took an even bigger hit. Huge hit. Now the Chargers, Chiefs on top and then a 6-way tie or a 3-way tie with 6 wins between the other teams. That's a little scary. That means anything can happen from here on out. And the Chargers certainly, such a good team this season. Justin Herbert, we got some good things going for us. We learned a lot about this team on Sunday, too. This is a very good team, but they have got some issues. They have got some holes, in more particular. Clemente should not play another down for the Chargers, if we can help it. He was okay at times, but my God, that was a drive killer. That's the kind of things that it's a sin. You don't do that in football. The Chargers have cornerback issues. The Chargers have a running back issue. The Chargers have linebackers issues sometimes. I would say edge, the opposite. I wanted to see more of, Kenneth Murray on the edge opposite Bosa. We just have some issues. And a coaching issue. I will say that, a coaching issue. I don't know how much I put of it on Staley. Certainly, he's in charge of his coordinators, or even Joe Lombardi, but, we have to do better. They're not bad, but they have to do better, right? They have to do better. And I think a lot of it came down to this one, bad luck, circumstances, and the wackiness we see at Mile High every season. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think we can do to improve immediately. And we can start thinking into the future a little bit too. What's the position group that you guys want the Chargers to address maybe in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft? We have defensive tackle, cornerback, offensive line. There's some choices. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. Guys, hold your heads up high if you're Chargers fans too, man. Be mad today, bolt up tomorrow. We still have a great team. We have a quarterback. We've got huge playmakers on defense. We got a lot of pieces to work with. But the Chargers certainly have some holes to fill in the upcoming weeks and years, okay? Well, guys, thank you again for joining me. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty.